On, Papa's here, and look, Professor X is looking over my shoulder. He's eager to hear this latest story from the X-Men files. This story features a new and very unusual villain, the Locust. All right, so here he is, big, winged, gigantic fella whose power involves insects. Well, let's get into the story. All right, X-Men, the most unusual fighting team of all time, dealing with the plague of the Locust. So here's Marvel Girl borrowing some books off of Professor X's shelf. She says, "I hope you don't mind, Professor, if I borrow these volumes on telekinetic research. With them, I can continue to study ways to utilize my mutant power even when I'm gone. I'll return them to you as soon as possible." But the professor says, "You may keep them, Jean, with our compliments. Consider them a parting gift from the X-Men." Bobby says, "The school won't be the same without Marvel Girl, will it, Scott?" "No, Bobby," answers Scott. "I guess not." And then Hank says, "Shakespeare expostulated that parting is sweet sorrow. I wonder if perchance the bard might have been a mutant." Okay, a super-powered playwright. Well, what's going on? Well, the editor explains, just in case this emotion-drenched scene leaves any mixed-up Marvelites feeling as if they've missed something. We didn't miss anything, though, did we? Allow us to quickly fill you in. At the conclusion of last issue's epic battle with the malevolent Magia, a saddened Jean Grey received a shocking letter. Unaware of her dual role as one of the super-powered X-Men, her parents have withdrawn her from Professor Xavier's private school, and they are sending her to a more conventional college. So that's why Jean is leaving the school and the X-Men. She's going off to college. And she explains, "Mom and Dad feel that since we formally graduated some time ago, it's time I pursued a college degree elsewhere." And the professor agrees. Perhaps they are right. Besides, since you'll be attending Metro College, which isn't far away, you can visit us often. "Yes, I can. Now, excuse me, please. I must change." Probably she must also go someplace and shed some tears. As would be expected, Scott and Warren drive Jean to Metro College. Looks like it's raining. But they drove her in the professor's very fancy Rolls Royce. And Scott, ever the pessimist, thinks, "Jean's leaving has started me thinking. Is it perhaps time that I too quit the X-Men in pursuit of a more normal life? Or am I doomed to be nothing but a super-powered freak until I die?" Warren says out loud, "Starting college during the summer is a good idea, Jean. You'll get a jump on all your studies that way. And when fall comes, the Human Torch is a student here. Wouldn't he flip to find out he isn't the only superhero on campus?" Jean replies, "But he won't find out, Warren. Here at college, I'll be plain Jean Grey and nothing more." And then she thinks, "Poor Angel, trying so hard to cheer me up, even though he would hate the idea of my dating Johnny Storm. If only I could have fallen in love with him instead of with Scott, but maybe it's too late now for any of us." Too late to follow up on these feelings because Jean is leaving the X-Men, but not for long. The X-Men are going to need her, and she'll find ways to fit back into the team. But so much for all this small talk, right? Let's get on with the action. And here is our villain, a real oddball baddie that's waiting. At that very second, miles away, here is this character in his costume, and he's in a field with grain. wheat. He says the soil conditions are ideal for hatching my ionically treated insect eggs. And so this is the day of the locust. All right. The next instant, as the glowing, pulsating eggs strike the marshy soil of the wheat field, they seem to burst, almost on contact. And from the eggs burst nymphs, young locusts which grow visibly with each bite of the moist grain. Feed well, my pretties, feed well. Now only I, your leader, am present to hear your song of mounting menace. But soon the world shall know the meaning of that sound and live in terror of it. Crunch, crunch, crunch. As they grow and eat, their crunching sounds get louder and louder. And indeed, the world begins to learn of its fantastic danger almost at once as crunch, crunch, crunch. The loud noise wakes up the farmer. Listen, do you hear that chomping sound, Cora? I thought it was you having an early breakfast. It's probably nothing. Go back to sleep. But curiosity is a powerful force, and the farmer gets up and looks out the window. Now we'll just see what... Cora, for heaven's sake, come here, quick. What is it, Henry? What's wrong? I can't describe it. You've got to see for yourself. And this is the sight that greets Farmer Henry. Truer words were never spoken, for as the farmer and his wife gaze in utter astonishment, an incredible, almost nightmarish scene meets their startled eyes. Eat heartily, my six-legged subjects, for with each tender morsel that you devour, you increase in size. Already you are hundreds of times larger than your fellow insects, and that is but the beginning. Too long have lesser mortals lorded it over this abundant planet. It is not the weak who must inherit the earth, but the strong, and we are the strong. Meanwhile, the incredulous farmer has phoned the local authorities, and as morning dawns, the farmer explains to the policeman, by the time I could load my gun, the oversized critters had already leveled my field and hopped away. What's more, I swear one of them was half human. Sure, mister, says the policeman. And at what time did the good fairies come flying by? The policeman doesn't believe him. But the other policeman says, don't shrug off his story too fast, Marv. Something certainly raised this place, and it wasn't pink elephants. Personally, in this day and age, I wouldn't even bet that was impossible. A few hours later, as the X-Men go through their paces in Westchester County, Cyclops says, look alive, Angel, you barely cleared Iceman's hoop. Keep your goggles on, Psych. The world wouldn't crumble if I hit it. Beast says, translation, with Jean absent, there's no one to heap approbation upon his peerless performance. Thanks, Beast, says Iceman. Now if somebody will just translate the translation. Uh-oh, heads up, compatriots. Here comes the professor. The professor says, I'm afraid your training session is over for the present. I just heard alarming reports on the radio, reports of giant locusts devastating a series of farms upstate. If this information is true, these huge insects are possibly mutations, and that makes them the business of the X-Men. Before long, the X-copter is flying over the area. Boy, Professor, our high-speed copter can really travel. Even the National Guard hasn't had time to make the scene yet. That, Bobby, is precisely why we must make our investigations quickly. I want to avoid associating this menace with the X-Men in the mind of the public. Ah, there is our quarry, directly below. Prepare for landing. Holy cow! Look at the size of those babies. But there are only a dozen of them at most, perhaps for now, but those in turn might breed countless others. And then where would mankind be? and here's that awful crunching sound. Crunch, crack, chomp, 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 chomp. While unobserved by the marvelous mutants in a nearby grove, the Locust is watching. The X-Men, I'm not yet prepared to face them, but no matter. This experiment has served its purpose. I shall bide my time and strike again. Gosh, it seems strange to be going into action without Marvel Girl. No time to worry about that, Iceman. Professor Xavier wants one of these creatures for study. No sooner said than done, dauntless deputy leader. And the beast hops on the back of one of these gigantic locusts. Notice, group, with the guileless grace, the grandiloquent beast accosts his perplexed prey. Thump. But then, now the beast is perplexed. Restrain yourself, invertebrate. I'm supposed to be apprehending you. Kapwang! And the locust springs up into the air, carrying the beast with him. This would seem to be more in your department, Angel. Care to lend an assist? Just hang on, beastie. I'll take care of the hard part. Then, swiftly ascending to a greater height, the winged warrior swoops at his target with dazzling speed. A good power dive should give me enough force to bug your little playmate. Under the circumstances, my bird-like benefactor, I'll forgive your somewhat unimaginative attempt at humor. Thanks muchly, Whack. Okay, I suspect we'll hear a lot of bug and insect puns through this issue. All right, that finished him. He's dropping like a stone. For all their size, these locusts are relatively defenseless. Against a superpowered mutant, yes, but an ordinary Homo sapiens would not fare so well. Also, what if every locust on Earth became so large? That is what disturbs the professor. Disturbs me too. Oh my. Then directly below, watch this toss, Cyclops. There's nothing like a nice, fresh ice spear for cooling down a rampaging locust, I always say. Great, Bobby, but do it fast. We're on a tight schedule, remember? In other words, less talk, more fight. Zish! Thack! Got one! Just like shooting fish in a barrel. I'm getting to be a regular Hawkeye. Hey crew, I wonder if there's a superhero Olympics. If there is, I oughta yipes! I oughta yipes? Yipes! I didn't see that locust behind me. Its chewers got me in a steel grip. Hold still, Iceman, let me get a good shot at it. Zap! Cyclops got a good shot at it. That's one more insect whose munching days are over. Thanks, Psych. He wouldn't have cared much for Iceman a la mode anyway. Now, let's take care of the rest of them. But at that moment, outrageous fortune lends a hand in the shape of an approaching helicopter. Ooh, look, it's spraying pesticide. And the pilot thinks, we can't be sure that this pesticide will have any effect on those overgrown monsters, but anything is worth a try. The National Guard is coming right behind me, but first they want to see if this new chemical spray has any effect. Well, if it doesn't affect the locusts, I bet it'll affect the X-Men, and they holler, oh, we're in for it. That pilot doesn't see us, and he's dusting the field. Cover your faces. This stuff is strong. When are the X-Men going to stop being the hard luck Harrys of herodom? I can't see. It's thick as pea soup. Angel, use your wings as a fan to clear a breathing space for all of you. That's a thought from Professor X. A telepathic thought from Professor X. As always, he's in relative control of the situation. And as the high-flying angel carries out his orders, you're a friend in need, Warren boy, but I'm afraid our buddy struck out. the insects weren't fazed by the chemical spray. Professor X sends another thought blast. X-Men, I sense soldiers drawing near. Return to the copter with one of the specimens. A pleasure, sir. The authorities already have a propensity for suspecting us of unlawful activity. Exactly 1 minute later, as armed troops appear on the scene, they've got a flamethrower. The flamethrowers will dispose of the few remaining locusts. It is fortunate they were not numerous, but will mankind be so lucky next time? And so the soldier says, okay, ma'am, let's mop up those six-legged menaces. Whoosh goes the flamethrower. All right, here's a change of pace. We're going to go back to Metro College where we find Jean Grey visiting with a new friend named Ted Roberts. And Ted invites her to the coffee shop. Once they're at the coffee shop, Ted and Jean have a conversation, but here enters a strange man, and a student says, look, there's Mr. Mad Scientist himself, old Doc Hopper. And Doc Hopper is not happy with the attention he's getting. He says, ignorant, impudent fools, when you are all in your graves, the name of August Hopper will shine more brightly than any other. Scoff while you may, for the day is coming. Bah, why do I waste my time on prattling dolts? You will learn, all of you. And Jean asks, who is that man? And Ted says, that's Dr. Hopper. He lives nearby and eats here occasionally. He was a top name in entomology. That's the study of insects, entomology. And then some of his crackpot theories got him fired. But don't shed too many tears for him, though. He works for Ryan Chemicals now. Why do you ask? Nothing. It's just something about him, something in his voice. And then she thinks, I must stop looking for danger, as if I were still one of the X-Men. However, if Jean could follow the tempestuous Dr. Hopper to his Ryan Chemicals lab, she would soon observe, as he says, so it is not enough that they have taken away my professorship, deprived my insect mutation theories of an audience of receptive minds. They must mock me as well, call me crackpot and mad scientist. I, mad, that is the supreme irony. For it is I who am the sanest of all. Only I have had the sheer genius to develop the most potent insecticides known to man. But always in the past, others have taken credit for my discoveries. First Metro College, and now Ryan Chemicals. I have remained unknown. No more! Soon the name of August Hopper will be known throughout the world as the savior of the human race. And now it is time to test the latest improvements of my new formula. First, I activate this single insect egg with my original Magno ray. And so he shines this ray on this insect egg and it magnifies it. Excellent. Just as before, the newly hatched larva begins to feed and increases its bulk immediately as it devours ordinary leaves. Chomp, chomp. It was thus that I, in my ingenious guise of the Locust, created the small but mighty army of insects which the accursed X-Men attacked. But since that meeting, I have refined the Magno Ray and developed this portable version of it. Bzik, and he shines that Magno Ray on a beetle. And it works, as I knew it would. The ray alone now increased the beetle's size. Now the carnivorous beetle attacks the caterpillar. In this way, nature has always controlled a balance of species. But there will be no such control acting upon my giant insects, and mankind will be helpless before them. Then I, Dr. Hopper, shall discover the way to destroy them, and I shall receive the plaudits of a desperately thankful world. So he plans to create the menace and then provide a solution for the menace. That never works out. Thus at last I will be given the credit which has been so long denied me. My fame shall endure forever. Meanwhile, I must disintegrate these two specimens, lest they be discovered and my purpose thwarted. Psst. And so he's got a disintegrator ray. So he builds them up and tears them down. In a matter of hours, my insect legions will attack anew, more powerful, more numerous than before. And if the X-Men interfere again, they will be ruthlessly destroyed by the Locust. The next morning, in the laboratory of Professor Xavier's school for gifted youngsters, the professor's examining this giant locust. I hope the prof finishes examination of the giant locust pretty soon. I've got a date with Zelda tonight, says Bobby. And Hank answers, and I with Vera. And so Hank asks, what's the verdict, Professor? Is this oversized orthopteron a mutation? In a sense, Hank. However, my study indicates that some artificial means was used to increase its stature. It would appear that there is some human agent behind these fantastic creatures. Human agent, that jibes with one farmer's claim to seeing a man directing the insect's actions. But what kind of man, Professor? Could it be that some evil mutant is on the prowl? Negative, Warren. The X-Copter is equipped with a portable version of Cerebro, and it would have registered any mutant humans within a 20-mile radius. So now it is up to the 5 of us. Correction, Professor, the 6 of us. Who's this voice? Who's coming into the room? Look, it's Marvel Girl. What are you doing here? It's the weekend, you know. Well, may I come in? Well, what do you think? I was already getting tired of looking at the beast. Likewise, my frosty friend. Where did you pick up the giant locust? I had heard reports of some upstate. Well, have a chair, lady, and we'll tell you all about it. But then the professor says, perhaps I'd best take care of the explanations, Angel. Then, after Jean Grey is filled in hurriedly, she says, it all sounds utterly incredible, and yet Dr. Hopper seems to have predicted years ago that this would happen. What? Asks the professor. Tell me more, Jean. Who is this Dr. Hopper? Quickly, I must know. The information may be vital. Well, he used to be a professor at Metro College. A boy whom I met told me that Dr. Hopper holds some rather far-fetched theories about insect mutation. He believes ionic bombardment could one day increase their size and lead to the destruction of mankind. He preached his theory so vehemently in class that the college had to dismiss him, and now he works for Ryan Chemicals. Says the professor. It may just be that this Dr. Hopper is more far-sighted than the world imagines. I think I'd better pay him a visit at once. Get the car, Warren. You're driving me to Ryan Chemicals. Okay, so it's off to Ryan Chemicals, where the professor will discover more about Dr. Hopper. Isn't that an interesting name for a man who purports to be the Locust? Well, we'll find out more about Dr. Hopper, the Locust, and how the X-Men will defeat him in our next visit. So, thanks for joining me for this X-Men story. More to come.